Yep.
But it is interesting.
God, you look good for 26.
I am now. I'm on the 20th anniversary of my 25th birthday. So yeah, I try to tell people that. But looking at my daughter saying, I got out of the Marine Corps at your age, and I had a kid. I've been married for 2 years at that point. And I see some of the stuff that she does as a normal 23-year-old and having a good time in life and working and having fun and dating and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, my life was completely different than yours. But it made sense. It made sense to me because, like Jay said, I'd already lived a lifetime. And you get out, and a lot of these veterans don't feel like there's anywhere to go because unless you're a veteran yourself, you don't understand. I can look at someone in the eye and know, oh, that dude's seen something. That dude's had a past life. That dude is not some just random guy. And I think Jay and Jake both can. If you've been around a veteran and you talk to someone, depending on the subject, they either are very emotional, very intense, or they're very, very quiet. There's only those three that I've come to terms with. And oh, okay, maybe we're talking about how does the family or how do people react to that. You need to learn how to be able to read people. If you're a supervisor at a job and you know that one of your employees is a veteran, you may not know what they did. You may not care what they did in that military, but you have to understand they've probably done something or seen something or been around something that has changed them in some way. So you have to be able to read people. And if you know there's something, a subject, or there's something that's going on and you see a personality change in that person, you have to be able to recognize that. But I think what people don't do is they don't take the time. And I don't think you should go ask them, hey, man, everything okay? Did you see something you want to talk about? I wouldn't want anyone to ever ask me that. But just knowing to sit there and say, kind of just nod at them, hey, I'm here. I'll a nod. Sometimes it sounds weird, but I can look at someone and I just nod my head, bro. Hey, I got you if you need me, type thing. And that means as much as anything else, saying, I don't want to talk about it unless you want to talk about it. But if you want to, I'm always here. And I think that that's the biggest thing is some people either do nothing to find out what's going on with that person or they push too much. And pushing too much can be just as detrimental as not asking, hey, do you need help? Do you need someone to talk to? Yeah. But those continue. Why don't you talk about it, man? Why don't you talk about it? You'll feel better if you get off your chest. No, dude, I don't want to, I think that there is a fine line, but that's where I think people need to do is maybe learn how to read people and figure out what's the best way to approach each individual. I don't think there's a blanket answer.
You agree with that, Jay?
I mean,
complicated.
It is complicated because, I think we do have to learn to recognize some of the standard warning signs when somebody's in distress, emotionally, mentally. We have to be willing to have hard conversations. But there's a difference in being willing and knowing how. I don't claim to be the expert on any of it. I can just tell you, I know that we have to dispel certain myths, around the discussion of suicide, around the discussion of mental illness.
If you come to counseling, we're not going to take your guns because you're struggling.
Yeah. No, that's a big one. And I wish I had kept count over the years, the number of times that I have had that specific conversation with veterans. That was their fear. That was, and whether it was legitimate or whether it was an excuse, that was what they expressed to me in the moment as causing their hesitation to come in and just talk. And I'm not talking about swapping war stories. I'm not talking about digging into trauma. None of that. Just come in and have a conversation. And
you're talking about being vulnerable, just being honest, hey man, I'm struggling. I'm in a dark spot. We don't need diagnostics. We don't need war stories. Like you said, it's just let's be human to human. You good?
And I think that, go ahead, Trey.
I was going to say that's the biggest step sometimes is making that mental decision, saying I got to go talk to somebody. That's huge. Go ahead, Jake. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and I think that like we have not done ourselves any favors. And again, I'm not trying to get political here. And this is me, Jay, talking as Jay, and in no way expressing a viewpoint for the Department of Veterans Affairs. But I look back at some of the decisions that were made previously, where, and Jake, you know that folks can be deemed incompetent for all kinds of reasons. When we're talking about like Social Security,
which is an administrative travesty. Like that's a policy wonk. It's
yeah, but I think that's one of the places we shot ourselves in the foot.
Absolutely.
Because I can tell you within the veteran population, it did not take a hot minute for that to get out.
Right.
And I had folks that I had been seeing that refused to come back.
That sucks.
And, so it's like we have to be willing to understand how we have conversations, how we have relationships, how we make it clear up front with the folks that were there to help. Like we're here so you can have somebody to confide in. Now there will come a point in time that we may have to, not hold everything in confidence. But the one thing that we will hold in confidence, like I'm not going to go talk to my supervisor about how many veterans I see that I know own firearms, right, because it has nothing to do with their treatment. Yeah. Now, if I felt that they were in imminent danger of harming themselves or somebody else, I'm going to have that hard conversation.
That's a big public relations campaign that we're continuing to fight, which is, among law enforcement personnel as well, where it's like, dude, it's okay to struggle and we know you can still do your job. Like, right? Like that's a PR message that has to get out.
That goes all the way into the military. I mean, if you think there weren't guys that I was deployed with that were thinking, and I'm trying to watch my language here. I don't
want MFers.
Well, no, just simply like the fact of like, man, it would be just so much easier just to check out right now, and I've got the means to do it. If you think there are people every day in a combat zone having thoughts like that, well, we're fooling ourselves.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about it. We just move on. But we have to figure out a way to have that conversation. And I agree with Trey. We have to do it in a way that's not intrusive. And sometimes it is just saying like, man, I don't know that you're where I'm at or where I was at, but I have probably been pretty close to where you're at. And, the light at the end of the tunnel is not always a train.
Yeah, there's that great story that a guy falls in a hole and he's yelling up to the road, hey, anybody help, and a guy throws a ladder, but the ladder doesn't make it all the way down, and all this different things. They're throwing water down the hole. And all of a sudden, this dude jumps in the hole. He's like, what are you doing? He goes, I heard you needed help out of the hole. He goes, yeah, but you're stuck down here with me. He goes, yeah, but I've been here before, and I know the way out. And it's a powerful, powerful story that, and I'm sure you guys have heard it. When I talk to guys all the time, and I'm by no means a clinician, I'm not medically trained at all, but I have people reach out to me through email and say, man, thanks for your story, or thanks for talking, or thanks for listening. I've got a story, hell yeah, man. Call me 24/7. I had people call me at 3:00 in the morning one time about a month ago, and it was the greatest conversation we ever had. That's about 3 minutes. He just wanted to say, man, I just listened to your podcast, and I appreciate you. I'm good now. And I was like, man, I didn't even know. I mean, this guy, I've never met him in person.
Awesome. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible. But, I think what it comes down to is however it has to happen. I don't know. You guys are a lot smarter than I am, but I think that kind of what Jay and you and Jake were both talking about is, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is figure out a way. How do we get the message out there that there are people out here that are willing to just talk. No judging, no reporting. There will be nothing written down. It's just two dudes talking, and maybe we've had similar stories, or we've been through some of the same stuff, or I might have been there 10 years before you did, but we shared some of the same sand or whatever. And sometimes that's really what it comes down to, is trying to find a way to let people know that you're not going through this alone. There is a darkness in people's minds, but we have the light. And there is a way out of that hole if you just trust us. And I think trust is a big key. I don't know what you guys had to think about that, but I would think that trust is a big key, that we have to let them know you can trust us.
Well, honestly, I think that what you touched on there with the trust, like that's also part of the PR campaign, right? And I don't know how it's going to be constructed, if it's going to be, you know, bought and paid for ads on the TV or whatever. But what we have to do as clinicians is communicate that there's a safe space has been co-opted, which is total crap. But this is a safe space for you to talk, right? You come into my office here in Reno, Nevada, or Sparks, Nevada, or wherever I happen to be, or if I'm virtually talking to you online in Atlanta, Georgia, like you're safe here, right? Like full trust and confidence. And I think that for whatever reason, that's been bastardized, and I don't know how it happened that clinicians ended up being cast as like this untrustworthy bunch of people who are not to be infused with your experiences, because they're going to somehow pick up the bat phone to the government or whatever. We have laws and ethics woven into laws and all sorts of things that specifically don't allow that to happen. But human to human, it's just not in our character to go like squealing to other people. I don't tell my wife about my clinical sessions. Like it's none of her business. It's not their story to share with her. And I have to be well trained enough to know that I leave it at the office, right? So like as a clinical community, we need to do that too. We need to do a better marketing campaign to say like, look, you come into session, and I never swear on this podcast, and I'm going to now, but your shit dies here. Like that's it. Like you dump whatever you want, whether you're drinking too much, or you got a coke habit that your wife doesn't know about, or your kid's skipping school and you don't know what to do about it. Like I'm not telling anyone, unless, again, like Jay said, you're an imminent threat to yourself or others. And I mean imminent. Like you're going to walk out that door and go walk into a bus. Then I'm going to do something. But until you prove me otherwise, I'm just going to assume you're going to be safe when you leave my office. And our clinical community has a responsibility to bear, to go show that to the public and stop somehow purporting that we're just going to like send you to the hospital, or you're going to have your rank removed, or like we're going to tell your command staff, or whatever it is. It's just not true. You're struggling, you're ailing, we're going to help you through it. Because if you couldn't recover, then my profession would cease to exist. And if you were somehow permanently disabled, then you yourself have a responsibility to own that anyway, and not report back to duty. Right.
And I was going to say, I think one of the things too that those, I mean, and this is, again, you'll hear me say this all the time, like I'm the expert on one thing. Okay. And that's myself.
You.
And so I think one of the things that is off-putting too is you walk into a room and it's like, we're going to throw all these things at you
to fix you.
Yes, to fix you, rather than sit down, human to human, have a conversation, and do some like exploration. Like, what do you do to feel better? What do you think you could do? Like, and I go just to tie into this like lethal means and the kind of talk that we need to have when we're very prescriptive. You know, we all know that if I tell you what to do, if I give you a plan, the likelihood that you will follow that plan is dramatically lower than if we work together and I say, you tell me what you think would work and how can we work together to put that into place. And we need to understand